After 12 years as a surgeon, I thought I had seen the absolute worst of humanity. I have held beating hearts in my hands. I have watched families collapse in waiting rooms. I have delivered news that shattered worlds. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for standing in my own living room and watching my baby sister drop a white powder into my champagne glass. The sister I had protected since childhood. The sister I had bailed out of debt 3 times. The sister who smiled at me across the room like nothing had happened. She wanted me dead. She wanted my money, my assets, my life. So I did what 12 years in the operating room had taught me. I stayed calm. I assessed the situation. And I switched the glasses. 5 minutes later, Laura was convulsing on the floor, poisoned by her own hand. And I was just getting started. If you want to know how I exposed the woman who tried to murder me at my own anniversary party, keep watching. Hit that subscribe button right now. This is the story of how I performed the most dangerous operation of my life, without a scalpel, without anesthesia, and without mercy. Let me take you back to earlier that evening. My Beacon Hill brownstone glowed with warm light against the October darkness. I had spent weeks planning this celebration. 10 years of marriage to Daniel Carter deserved something special, not extravagant, not ostentatious, just elegant, just right. 50 guests filled the first floor. Colleagues from Boston General Hospital mingled with neighbors and distant relatives. The string quartet played softly in the corner. Crystal champagne flutes caught the candlelight. Everything looked perfect. Daniel stood by the fireplace, greeting guests with that easy charm that had attracted me to him 15 years ago. He was still handsome at 43, dark hair graying at the temples, warm smile that made everyone feel welcome. But his architecture firm had struggled for years now while my surgical career soared. I noticed how comfortable he seemed playing host in my house, spending my money on catering and flowers. I pushed the thought away. Tonight was about celebration. My mother Margaret stood across the room, elegant in navy silk, her silver hair perfectly styled. She had flown in from Connecticut for the occasion. But she was not standing with me. She was standing with Laura, as always. The two of them formed a unit, heads bent together, sharing some private conversation that did not include me. Even at my own anniversary party, I felt like a guest in my own family. I watched Margaret whisper something to Laura. My sister's expression flickered, nervous or excited, before she composed herself and laughed too loudly at nothing in particular. Something cold touched my spine. I ignored it. Laura was 4 years younger than me, the baby of the family. Golden hair that fell in perfect waves, delicate features that made people want to protect her. A fragility that had excused every mistake she ever made. I had spent my entire life protecting her. The failed boutique I funded. $60,000 gone. The credit card debt I paid off twice. The apartment deposit I covered when her last boyfriend left. Always with the promise that this time would be different. This time she would get her life together. She approached me now with a glass of champagne, smiling sweetly. "Emily," she said, pulling me into a hug, "everything is so beautiful. Daniel is so lucky to have you." Every word felt rehearsed, every gesture calculated. I noticed her dress, designer label, new. Her jewelry was expensive too. Last month she had called me crying about rent. Where did she get money for Valentino? "Thank you for coming," I said carefully. "Of course, I would never miss my big sister's special night." She squeezed my hand. I should go help with the toast preparations. I watched her walk toward the serving station where 2 crystal champagne flutes waited. They were special glasses I had commissioned for the evening. One etched with my name, one etched with Daniel's. Laura pulled out her phone, typed something rapidly, then deleted it. Her hands trembled slightly. The cold feeling returned, stronger now. I stepped back from the crowd, positioning myself near the grand staircase. A large floral arrangement partially concealed me. Force of habit. Surgeons observe before they act. From this vantage point, I had a clear view of the serving station. Laura glanced around the room, checking if anyone was watching. Daniel was deep in conversation with a colleague. Margaret faced the other direction. The catering staff had retreated to the kitchen. Laura reached into her clutch purse. Her fingers emerged holding a small paper packet. With practiced speed, she tore it open and tipped white powder into the champagne glass, etched with my name. My medical brain activated immediately. The powder dissolved too quickly to be sugar. The texture was wrong. The way Laura's hand steadied after the act told me everything. This was not a prank. This was not a joke. This was premeditated. Time seemed to slow. My heart rate stayed controlled. Panic is for amateurs. I learned in residency that when blood is spurting and monitors are screaming, the surgeon who panics kills the patient. I was not going to be the patient tonight. Laura stirred the champagne gently, then checked her phone again. I caught a fragment of text on the glowing screen. Done. Get ready. Get ready for what? I noticed Daniel excuse himself from his conversation. He walked toward the back door. His timing was too perfect. He did not look at Laura, but Laura watched him go. My hands remained steady. 3 minutes until the toast. I needed to move now. I walked through the crowd with measured grace, greeting guests, accepting compliments, revealing nothing of the storm inside me. 12 years of delivering devastating news to families had taught me to control my face absolutely. I reached the serving station just as Laura stepped away to find Margaret. 2 glasses sat side by side, Emily on the left, poisoned, Daniel on the right, clean. My hands moved with surgical precision. 30,000 hours of operating had made my fingers faster than conscious thought. I reached for both glasses as if adjusting their position. In one fluid motion, I switched them. Left became right became left. Then I went further. I moved the glass meant for Daniel to the far end of the table, behind a flower arrangement. I took a clean glass from the catering tray and placed it where Daniel's should be. Now there were 2 clean glasses for the main toast, and 1 poisoned glass positioned exactly where Laura would instinctively reach when she joined the circle. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You should leave the party early tonight. Trust me. I deleted the message without responding. The string quartet stopped playing. Daniel called for attention, his voice warm and practiced. Friends, family, he announced. Thank you all for being here to celebrate 10 wonderful years with the most amazing woman I know. I watched him with new eyes. His smile seemed mechanical. His charm felt like performance. Margaret watched with an expression I could not read. Laura moved to the serving station to distribute the toast glasses. She handed me the Emily glass with a sisterly smile. She handed a clean glass to Daniel. Then she picked up the remaining glass, the one in the position where she always stood. The poisoned glass. She raised it high. To my amazing sister, Laura announced, her voice bright with false love. May this next decade bring you everything you deserve. Everyone drank. I took a small sip of clean champagne, watching over the rim of my glass. Laura drained hers in one long swallow. 30 seconds passed. Laura laughed at something a guest said. 60 seconds. She wiped her forehead. The room is warm, she murmured. 90 seconds. Her smile faltered. She gripped the edge of a table. 2 minutes. Her words began to slur. Her pupils constricted to pinpoints. I recognized the signs immediately. Central nervous system depression. Respiratory compromise beginning. Laura looked across the room at me. Confusion crossed her face first, then horror, then understanding. She opened her mouth to speak, to accuse, to scream, but her body betrayed her first. Her knees buckled, the crystal glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor. Laura collapsed into the silence, convulsing, foaming at the mouth, her body rigid with seizures. 50 guests stood frozen in horror. The party went silent. But my war had just begun. The room exploded into chaos the moment Laura hit the floor. Screams pierced the elegant chamber music still playing from the speakers. Guests stumbled backward, knocking over champagne flutes and silver trays of hors d'oeuvres. Someone shouted to call 911. A woman near the fireplace fainted into her husband's arms. I did not scream. I did not freeze. 12 years in trauma surgery had rewired my nervous system. While others panicked, I moved. I was beside Laura in 3 seconds, dropping to my knees on the Persian rug. My sister's body was rigid, every muscle locked in violent spasm. Foam gathered at the corners of her mouth, white-tinged pink with blood where she had bitten through her tongue. My clinical mind cataloged the symptoms automatically: rapid onset, severe muscle rigidity, respiratory depression, meiosis, the pinpoint pupils that told me exactly what I was dealing with. This was not a simple sedative. This was something far more dangerous. Possibly flunitrazepam, possibly GHB, possibly a cocktail designed specifically to kill. Laura's eyes rolled back. Her breathing became shallow, labored, the desperate gasps of a body forgetting how to survive. I barked orders at the frozen crowd. Someone turn off that music. You, call 911 and tell them we have a possible drug overdose with respiratory distress. You, get me ice and a clean towel. Everyone else step back. Give her air. In my peripheral vision, I saw Daniel standing frozen by the back door. He was not rushing to help. He was not calling for assistance. He was simply watching, his face pale with something that looked less like concern and more like fear. I filed that observation away and focused on my sister. I tilted Laura's head back, clearing her airway. I checked for obstructions, monitored the pulse at her neck. Rapid but weakening. The convulsions began to subside, but this was not a good sign. It meant the drug was taking deeper hold, shutting down her central nervous system one function at a time. I performed a jaw thrust maneuver, keeping the airway open. My hands moved with the precision of 10,000 surgeries, but my mind worked on 2 levels. Level 1. Save my sister's life. Whatever Laura had done, whatever she had planned, I was still a doctor. I took an oath, and despite everything, this was still my baby sister seizing on the floor of my home. Level 2. Preserve evidence. While stabilizing Laura's head with one hand, my other hand moved to her clutch purse lying beside her. My fingers brushed against a small paper wrapper, the torn edge still sharp. I palmed it smoothly, slid it into my own pocket in one fluid motion. No one noticed. They were too busy panicking. I spotted Laura's shattered champagne glass nearby. The base was still intact, residue visible on the crystal. I made a mental note of its exact position. That glass would need to be tested. "Is she breathing?" someone asked from behind me. "Barely. The ambulance needs to hurry." Margaret pushed through the crowd and dropped beside me. But instead of asking if Laura was okay, instead of asking what happened, my mother grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "What did you give her?" Margaret hissed, her eyes wild with accusation. I stared at my mother in disbelief. Laura was dying on the floor, and Margaret's first instinct was to blame me. "I didn't give her anything," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "She's been poisoned. Someone put something in her drink." Margaret's eyes narrowed with decades of suspicion. "You've always been jealous of her, ever since you were children." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her, force her to see the truth that was lying right in front of us. But 50 witnesses were watching this scene unfold. I could not afford to lose control. "Mother, I'm trying to save her life. If you want to help, get my medical bag from the upstairs bathroom. If you want to accuse me, do it later." Margaret hesitated, her face contorting with conflicting impulses. Then she stood and disappeared into the crowd. A colleague approached, Dr. Nathan Cross, a cardiologist from Boston General. "Emily, let me help. What do you need?" Finally, someone rational. "Keep her airway clear, monitor her breathing. I need to check her vitals." As I worked, I noticed a bruise on Laura's forearm, fresh, finger-shaped, as if someone had grabbed her hard recently. Who had hurt her? Or was she hurting herself to build some kind of victim narrative? The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. I looked around for Daniel. My husband of 10 years should have been beside me. He should have been asking what happened, how he could help, whether I was okay. Instead, I found him near the back hallway, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, urgent tones. He was not looking at Laura. He was not looking at me. He was looking at the door, calculating something I could not understand. When he noticed me watching, he ended the call abruptly and walked over. His face rearranged itself into concern, but the transition was a fraction too slow. "Em, what happened? Is Laura okay?" She collapsed. Possible overdose or poisoning. I watched his reaction carefully. "Did you see anything? Anyone near the drinks?" Daniel shook his head too quickly. "No, I was talking to the Hendersons. I didn't see anything." But I remembered clearly. Daniel had excused himself from that conversation before the toast. I saw him walk toward the back door. He was nowhere near the Hendersons when Laura poisoned my champagne. He was lying. Daniel knelt beside Laura and took her hand. His grip was gentle, almost tender. The way a husband holds a wife's hand. Not the way a brother-in-law holds a sister-in-law's. I filed that away too. The paramedics burst through the front door with a stretcher. I briefed them with clinical precision. Female, 36 years old. Sudden collapse during a party. Suspected drug ingestion. Loss of consciousness. Respiratory depression. Convulsions lasting approximately 2 minutes. They worked quickly, loading Laura onto the stretcher, attaching monitors, starting an IV line. Her vitals were weak, but holding. "Are you family?" the lead paramedic asked. "I'm her sister, and I'm a surgeon at Boston General." He nodded, respecting the credential. "You can ride with us." I grabbed a clean napkin from the nearest table and carefully picked up the base of the shattered champagne glass, preserving any residue. "This needs to go to the hospital lab. It may contain whatever poisoned her." As they wheeled Laura out, I glanced back at my house. My beautiful brownstone, decorated for celebration, now a crime scene. Through the window, I saw Daniel watching us leave. He did not wave. He did not follow. He simply stood there, phone still in his hand, his expression unreadable. Boston General Hospital. I knew every corridor, every nurse, every attending physician, but tonight I was not a surgeon. I was a family member in the emergency waiting room, sitting on plastic chairs under fluorescent lights. The irony burned. I had given the champagne glass to a trusted colleague in the lab, Dr. Amara Okonkwo, a toxicologist who owed me a favor. She promised rush results, no questions asked. The powder wrapper was still in my pocket, burning like evidence of a crime I did not commit. Margaret arrived 20 minutes later. She did not sit next to me. She chose a chair across the room and stared at me with undisguised hostility. Daniel did not come at all. I checked my phone. No messages from my husband. No, "Are you okay?" No, "What's happening?" Nothing. 10 years of marriage, and he could not even pretend to care. A nurse I recognized approached hesitantly. "Dr. Carter, there's a detective here. He wants to speak with you about what happened at your party." 2 hours later, a doctor emerged from the treatment area. Laura was stable. She was awake. She was asking for family. Margaret and I followed him to Laura's room. My sister lay in the hospital bed, pale but alert, an IV dripping fluids into her arm. She looked fragile, victimized, perfect. The moment Laura saw me, her expression transformed. Her eyes widened in theatrical terror. She shrank back against the pillows as if I were a monster from a nightmare. She pointed a trembling finger at me. "Get her away from me." Margaret rushed to Laura's side. "Sweetheart, what is it? What happened?" Laura's voice broke into a sob, perfectly pitched, perfectly timed. "She did this to me. Emily poisoned me. I saw her near the glasses before the toast. She switched them. She tried to kill me." The accusation hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Margaret turned to me with triumph in her eyes, as if she had expected this all along. "I knew it. I knew something was wrong with you." Before I could respond, before I could defend myself, the door opened. A man in a gray suit entered. Detective Marcus Rivera, Boston Police Department. His badge glinted under the hospital lights. His expression was professionally neutral, but his eyes were sharp, assessing everything. "Emily Carter?" he asked. "Yes." "I need to ask you some questions about what happened tonight." He paused, glanced at Laura's tear-streaked face, at Margaret's accusing posture. "I'm going to need you to come with me." I straightened my spine. I was a surgeon. I had faced death on the operating table 1,000 times. I would not break now. "Of course, Detective," I said, my voice steady as steel. "I have nothing to hide." But as I followed him out of the room, I realized the terrible truth of my situation. The evidence was in my pocket. The truth was in my memory. And the entire world was about to believe I tried to murder my own sister. Detective Rivera led me to a small consultation room on the hospital's administrative floor. White walls, metal table, 2 plastic chairs. The room smelled like disinfectant and bureaucracy. I had been in rooms like this before, delivering devastating news to families whose loved ones did not survive surgery. I never imagined sitting on the other side of the table. Rivera settled across from me, opened a small notebook, clicked his pen. His movements were deliberate, unhurried. He had done this 1,000 times. "Dr. Carter, I want to be clear. You're not under arrest. This is just a preliminary conversation to understand what happened tonight." I nodded slowly. I knew the language of careful phrasing. Not under arrest meant not yet. "Can you walk me through the evening? Start from when you first noticed something was wrong." I took a breath. I could tell him everything. The powder, the switch, the evidence in my pocket. But something stopped me. Instinct. The same instinct that tells a surgeon when an operation is about to go wrong. "Before I answer any questions," I said, "I'd like to call my attorney." Rivera's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise or respect. "That's your right." As I reached for my phone, I noticed my hands were steady, rock solid, the same hands that saved 3 lives in surgery last week. I wondered if the detective noticed too, if he was cataloging my calm as evidence of guilt rather than evidence of training. I scrolled through my contacts. I needed someone who understood criminal law, someone who would not flinch at a high-profile case, someone I trusted absolutely. Rachel Kim, Harvard Law, class of 2008. We shared a study group during my pre-med years when she was finishing her JD. Now she ran her own criminal defense practice in downtown Boston. I texted her, "Emergency, hospital, I need you now." The response came in 30 seconds. "On my way. Say nothing until I arrive." I set my phone on the table and waited. Detective Rivera made small talk, the weather, the hospital renovation. Safe topics designed to make me comfortable, to make me forget he was investigating me for attempted murder. I responded in monosyllables. 23 minutes later, the door opened. Rachel Kim entered like a force of nature. 5'2", impeccably dressed in a navy suit despite the late hour, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Detective Rivera," she said. Not a question. "I'm representing Dr. Carter. This interview is over until I've consulted with my client." Rivera accepted this without argument. He left us alone in the room. My phone buzzed on the table. A notification from my bank. Alert. Joint account ending in 4471 has been frozen pending investigation. Daniel's name was on that account. Someone had moved fast. Too fast for a standard investigation. Rachel noticed my expression. "What is it?" I showed her the screen. "They've frozen my accounts. Already." Rachel's jaw tightened. That's unusual for this stage. Someone is pushing this case hard. Before we could discuss further, Detective Rivera returned. His expression had shifted since he left us. More guarded, less neutral. "Dr. Carter, your sister has given her statement. I think you should know what she's claiming." Rachel stepped forward. "My client doesn't need to..." I want to hear it, I interrupted. I needed to know what I was fighting. Rivera consulted his notebook. Miss Bennett claims that you have exhibited jealous and controlling behavior throughout her life. She states that you resented her close relationship with your mother. She alleges that you made comments in recent months about wishing she would disappear. My blood ran cold. I never said those words. Not once. Not ever, Rivera continued. She also claims that she saw you handling the champagne glasses before the toast. She says when she tried to stop you, you told her to mind her own business. She believes you intended to poison her and accidentally drank from the wrong glass yourself, then switched them in panic. The lie was so complete, so detailed, so perfectly constructed that I almost admired the craftsmanship. Laura had been planning this for a long time. That's completely false, I said. Every word of it. Rivera's expression did not change. That's what we're here to determine. A nurse passed by in the hallway outside, Janet Morrison. She had worked with me for 6 years in the surgical ward. Our eyes met through the window. Her face showed unmistakable sympathy. She slowed her pace, glanced at the detective, then pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm as she passed the doorway. The note was warm from her hand. I slipped it into my pocket without reading it. Rivera asked to take Margaret's statement next. Rachel objected, but he insisted it was standard procedure. Through the consultation room window, I watched Rivera speak with my mother in the hallway. Margaret's posture was rigid, defensive. She gestured emphatically. She pointed toward my room. She was not defending her eldest daughter. She was building the case against me. When Rivera returned, his demeanor had cooled further. Your mother corroborates much of your sister's account. She describes you as emotionally distant since childhood. She mentioned an incident when you were 15. Something about pushing your sister down the stairs? My jaw tightened. Laura fell. I tried to catch her. I was the one who called the ambulance. I held her hand the entire way to the hospital. That's not how your mother remembers it. Of course it was not. Margaret had been rewriting history for 30 years, always casting Laura as the victim and me as the villain. Rachel placed a hand on my arm. A warning. Detective, my client has been cooperative. Unless you're planning to make an arrest, I suggest we conclude this conversation. Rivera closed his notebook. Dr. Carter, don't leave town. As Margaret passed me in the hallway, she paused. For one moment, I hoped she would say something kind, something maternal. Instead, she leaned close and whispered, I always knew there was something wrong with you. The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. I tried calling Daniel for the 4th time, straight to voicemail. I texted him, Where are you? I need you. No response. Rachel watched me with careful eyes. Your husband. Where was he when all this happened? I thought back. Daniel by the back door. Daniel on his phone. Daniel watching from the window as the ambulance pulled away. I don't know. He was at the party, but after Laura collapsed, he just disappeared. Has he contacted you at all? No. Rachel's expression tightened. She typed something into her phone, then showed me the screen. A social media check-in from 2 hours ago. Daniel Carter checked in at the Marriott Long Wharf Hotel. My husband was not at the hospital. He was not at home. He was at a hotel downtown while his wife was being interrogated for attempted murder. Something cracked inside me. Not my composure, but my denial. I had been making excuses for Daniel for years. His career struggles, his emotional distance, his late nights that never quite added up. No more excuses. He's not coming, I said quietly. Is he? Rachel shook her head. I don't think so. I unfolded the note Janet had slipped me. 2 sentences in hurried handwriting. Check the pharmacy records. Your sister bought ketamine 3 days ago. I showed the note to Rachel. Her eyes widened. Ketamine? That's a controlled substance. How would Laura get access to that? I don't know, but Janet wouldn't risk her career to pass me false information. Rachel guided me to a quiet corner of the hospital lobby. The hour was late, past midnight, and the corridors were nearly empty. Emily, I need to tell you something. Her voice was low, serious. Before I came here tonight, I ran a quick background check on your sister. Standard procedure for any case I take. And? Laura retained legal counsel 2 weeks ago. Not a criminal attorney, an estate lawyer named Gerald Whitmore. He specializes in conservatorship and guardianship cases. I blinked. Conservatorship? That's for people who can't manage their own affairs. People with dementia or severe mental illness. Exactly. Rachel pulled out her tablet, showed me a document. I have a contact at the courthouse. Laura filed a preliminary petition 3 days ago. Before the party, she was seeking to have you declared mentally incompetent. The document was real. My name was typed across the top. The grounds listed included erratic behavior, paranoid delusions, and potential danger to self and others. None of it was true. All of it was fabricated. She wasn't just trying to kill me, I whispered, understanding finally crystallizing. She was trying to take everything I have. Rachel scrolled to the next page of the document. There's more. Look at the signature at the bottom. I looked. The page required a co-signer, someone who would support Laura's claims about my mental instability, someone who knew me intimately. The signature read, Daniel Carter. My husband had signed a document declaring me mentally unfit. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Laura's debts, Daniel's affair. Because surely there was an affair. His behavior screamed guilt. The conservatorship petition, the poisoning at the anniversary party. This was never about sibling rivalry. This was a coordinated attack. If I had drunk that champagne, I would have collapsed at my own party in front of 50 witnesses. Laura and Daniel would have claimed it was a mental breakdown. The petition was already filed. A judge might have granted emergency guardianship within days. Laura would have controlled my bank accounts, my property, my medical decisions. And with Daniel's help, they would have drained me of everything while I lay incapacitated in some facility. They planned this together, I said. My sister and my husband. Rachel nodded grimly. It looks that way. I stood in the hospital lobby, my world shattered into 1,000 pieces. My sister tried to kill me. My husband helped plan it. My mother chose sides against me. I should have been devastated. I should have been broken. Instead, I felt something else rising in my chest. Cold, sharp, surgical, rage. Not the hot, reckless kind that leads to mistakes. The cold kind. The kind that allows a surgeon to cut through flesh and bone with precision while a patient's life hangs in the balance. Laura wanted a war? I would give her one. But this time I would not be the victim on the operating table. I would be the one holding the scalpel. Rachel, I said, my voice steady as steel, I need you to find out everything about my sister's finances. Every debt, every transaction, every secret she's hiding. And I need it by morning. Rachel smiled. The smile of a lawyer who loves an impossible case. Consider it done. I returned to my Beacon Hill brownstone at 4 a.m. The house was dark, silent, still decorated for a celebration that had become a crime scene. Champagne flutes sat abandoned on tables. Wilted flower arrangements drooped in their vases. The Persian rug where Laura collapsed had been marked with police tape. They had taken samples, photographed everything, left chaos in their wake. I stood in the doorway of my own home and felt like a stranger. Daniel's closet was half empty. He had come while I was at the hospital, taken his clothes, his laptop, his golf clubs. He left no note, no explanation, just absence. 10 years of marriage erased in a few suitcases. I did not cry. I was beyond tears now. I walked through each room methodically, cataloging what he took, what he left behind. His wedding ring sat on the bathroom counter, abandoned, like our vows. I picked it up, felt its weight in my palm, then I dropped it in the trash. No sentiment, no grief, only clarity. On the kitchen counter I found a handwritten note I had missed earlier. Daniel's handwriting. 7 words that confirmed everything. I'm sorry it came to this. You left me no choice, no signature, no explanation of what this meant, just 7 words of cowardly justification. I had work to do. Rachel arrived at 7 a.m. with coffee and a thick folder of documents. She had not slept either, but her eyes were bright with the energy of discovery. "You need to see this," she said, spreading papers across my dining table. "Your sister is drowning." The financial picture was catastrophic. Laura Bennett owed $587,000 across multiple creditors. Credit card debt totaled $140,000. Personal loans added another $200,000. And the rest, the most damaging part, was owed to online gambling platforms and what appeared to be loan sharks. Loan sharks? I stared at the documents. Laura? She's been gambling online for at least 3 years. Started small, a few hundred here and there. Then it escalated. She lost her savings, maxed her credit cards, took out loans against her apartment. When legitimate lenders cut her off, she turned to less legitimate sources. I thought of Laura's designer dress at the party, her expensive jewelry, borrowed glamour masking complete financial ruin. "These people she owes money to," I said slowly. "What happens when she can't pay?" Rachel's expression darkened. "Nothing good. I found threatening messages on a forum she frequented. They know where she lives. They know where your mother lives." Laura was not just greedy. She was desperate enough to kill her own sister. Among the financial documents, Rachel found something else. A receipt from 6 months ago. A consultation fee paid to a private investigator. The subject of investigation was me. Laura had been researching her own sister for half a year. I remembered something then. A conversation from 6 months ago that had seemed innocent at the time. "Laura asked me about my life insurance," I said suddenly. "At Mom's birthday dinner, she said she was just curious about how policies work. She asked who my beneficiaries were." Rachel pulled out another document. "I checked. Your policy is worth $2 million. Primary beneficiary is Daniel Carter. Secondary beneficiary is Laura Bennett." The math was simple. If I died, Daniel would get $2 million. If Daniel and I both died, or if Daniel was somehow removed from the picture, Laura would get everything. I also found this. Rachel slid a bank statement across the table. "Your joint account with Daniel. Look at the transaction from 3 weeks ago." I scanned the statement. My blood turned to ice. $50,000. Transferred to an account belonging to Laura Bennett. Authorized by Daniel Carter. $50,000 of my money. Money I had earned in the operating room saving lives. Given to the woman who tried to kill me. The transfer date was 3 days after Laura filed the conservatorship petition. The money was not a gift. It was payment. A down payment on my murder. Rachel hesitated before pulling out the next item. A printed log of text messages. "I have a contact who does digital forensics. Technically this isn't admissible yet, but you should see what you're dealing with." The messages were between Daniel's phone and a number registered to Laura. They spanned 18 months. I read with clinical detachment, forcing myself to analyze rather than feel. The early messages were flirtatious. Inside jokes. "Miss you already. Can't stop thinking about last night." Then they became more intimate, explicit. References to hotel rooms, weekends when I was at medical conferences, a relationship thriving in the shadows of my marriage. Then, 3 months ago, the tone shifted. Laura had written, "We can't keep living like this. She has everything, and we have nothing." Daniel replied, "I know, I'm working on it." Laura, "After this is done, we'll be free." Daniel, "Soon. Just trust the plan." I set the pages down. My hands were steady, but something inside me had turned to stone. 3 years. My husband and my sister had been betraying me for 3 years. The final message in the log was sent the night of the party, 20 minutes before the toast. Daniel to Laura, "Glasses are set. Don't mess this up." Rachel spread more documents on the table. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, timestamps, and locations. Daniel has been careful, but not careful enough. I found charges at 3 different hotels over the past 6 months. All on nights you were working late or traveling. I scanned the receipts. The Langham Boston, $540. The Liberty Hotel, $480. The Marriott Long Wharf, where Daniel was staying right now. Each receipt showed 2 guests. Each receipt was charged to Daniel's card. The card linked to our joint account. He had paid for his affair with my money. "There's more," Rachel said quietly. "Room service charges, champagne, roses. He was romancing her on your dime while you were saving lives in the operating room." One receipt caught my attention, a charge for a safe deposit box rental at the Liberty Hotel. Whatever Daniel and Laura had stored there, they wanted it secure. I made a mental note. Find out what was in that box. My phone rang, a number I recognized. Dr. Miriam Walsh, the therapist I had seen for 6 months after my father died. "Emily, I need to tell you something." Her voice was troubled. "Someone contacted my office last week claiming to be from your insurance company. They requested copies of your treatment records." My grip tightened on the phone. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. Patient confidentiality is absolute." "But Emily," the caller ID traced back to a legal firm, Whitmore and Associates. Gerald Whitmore, Laura's conservatorship lawyer. "She tried to get your therapy records," Rachel realized, listening on speaker. "She was building a case. If she could prove you had a history of mental health treatment, the conservatorship petition would be stronger." I thought of my sessions with Dr. Walsh, grief counseling after losing my father. Nothing more. Normal, healthy processing of loss. But in the wrong hands, with the right spin, even grief could be weaponized. Dr. Walsh added one more detail. The caller specifically asked about any references to paranoid ideation or delusional thinking in your file. They seemed disappointed when I refused to answer. "She's been planning this for months," I said after hanging up. "Maybe longer." Every kindness I had ever shown Laura, every debt I had paid, every time I answered her calls at 2 a.m, all of it had been catalogued, twisted, prepared for use against me. I remembered the security system. After a break-in on our street 2 years ago, I had installed cameras throughout the house. Front door, back door, living room, kitchen. "The cameras," I said suddenly. "They record to a cloud server. Daniel doesn't know the password." I pulled up the app on my phone, navigated to the footage from the party. Rachel leaned in, watching over my shoulder. 8:47 in the evening. The serving station came into view. Laura approached, glanced around nervously. And there, stepping into frame, was Daniel. He positioned himself between Laura and the crowd, blocking the view from the living room. He checked his watch. He nodded slightly. Laura pulled out the packet. She emptied it into my champagne glass. Daniel watched. He did not stop her. He did not react. He simply kept watch, then walked away as if nothing had happened. The timestamp was clear. Their faces were clear. The conspiracy was documented in high definition. I stared at the frozen image on my phone screen. My husband and my sister, captured in the act of planning my murder. This was not circumstantial. This was not, he said, she said. This was proof. "Can we use this?" I asked. Rachel's smile was sharp. "Absolutely. This is your property, your security system, legally obtained footage. Any judge in Massachusetts will admit this as evidence." I saved the video, backed it up to 3 separate locations. Then I set my phone down and looked at Rachel. Laura accused me of poisoning her in front of the police. She convinced my mother I'm mentally unstable. She filed papers to take control of my entire life. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city, waking up to an ordinary morning. Now it's my turn. Rachel gathered the documents, the receipts, the evidence of betrayal stacked in neat piles. "What do you want to do first?" I turned back, my expression calm as a surgeon about to make the first incision. "I want to talk to my husband." The Marriott Long Wharf lobby was elegant and impersonal, the kind of place where businessmen conducted affairs and wives pretended not to notice. I walked through the revolving door with the same calm I brought to the operating room before a high-risk surgery. I had called ahead. Daniel agreed to meet. His voice was wary on the phone. He probably thought I wanted to reconcile, to beg him to come home. He had no idea what I knew. I chose this location deliberately. public enough that Daniel could not make a scene, private enough for honest conversation, neutral territory that belonged to neither of us. I spotted him at a corner table in the hotel bar, nursing a whiskey. He looked tired, unshaven, nothing like the polished man who had hosted our anniversary party 2 nights ago. Guilt does that to people. It erodes them from the inside. He stood when he saw me, attempted a smile that died on his lips when he read my expression. "Em," he said, "thanks for meeting me. I know things are complicated right now." Complicated? He called attempted murder complicated. I sat across from him, set my phone on the table with the recording app already running, and folded my hands. "Tell me about Laura," I said. Daniel's face drained of color. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for his whiskey. He knew that I knew. The only question was whether he would lie again. For a long moment he said nothing. I watched him calculate. Deny? Deflect? Confess? Finally, his shoulders slumped in defeat. "How long have you known?" "Long enough, but I want to hear it from you." He took a long drink, set the glass down with a trembling hand. "It started 3 years ago. At your mother's Christmas party, Laura was upset about something. Her boyfriend had just left her. I found her crying in the garden." I remembered that Christmas. I had been called to the hospital for an emergency surgery. I left Daniel at the party alone. "I comforted her," Daniel continued. "That's all it was supposed to be. Just comfort. But then—" He trailed off, unable to meet my eyes. "But then you slept with my sister." He flinched at the bluntness. "It wasn't planned. It just happened." "Once?" Silence. "How many times, Daniel?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know. Dozens. Maybe more." Dozens? While I worked 16-hour shifts saving lives, my husband was in hotel rooms with my sister. While I paid the mortgage and funded his failing architecture projects, he was funding Laura's gambling debts with my money. "Did you love her?" Daniel looked up, and for the first time I saw something genuine in his eyes. Confusion. "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't know what I feel anymore." His phone lit up on the table. The caller ID showed a heart emoji followed by the letter L. Laura was calling him right now, while he confessed to his wife. He silenced it without answering. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, the gesture of a man drowning. "You have to understand, Em. You were never there. You were always at the hospital, always saving someone else's life while ours fell apart. I was lonely. Laura was lonely. We found each other." I listened without interrupting. I had heard these excuses before. From patients' spouses explaining infidelity, from colleagues justifying bad decisions. The language of blame shifting was universal. "You built a career," Daniel continued, bitterness creeping into his voice. "A brilliant career. Everyone knows Dr. Emily Carter. No one knows Daniel Carter, the architect whose wife supports him. Do you know how that feels? To be invisible in your own marriage? So you decided to kill me?" The words landed like a slap. Daniel recoiled. "I didn't want to kill you. I never wanted that." "But you helped plan it. You signed the conservatorship petition. You stood guard while Laura poisoned my champagne." Daniel's face crumbled. "I didn't know she was going to use poison. I swear to God, Em, I thought she just wanted to make you look unstable. You thought what? That drugging me would be acceptable as long as it didn't kill me?" He had no answer. I leaned forward. "What was in the safe deposit box, Daniel? The one you rented at the Liberty Hotel?" His eyes widened with genuine surprise. He had not expected me to know about that. Daniel's resistance collapsed entirely. The whiskey was gone. His hands shook. "Laura came to me 6 months ago. She was terrified. She owed money to dangerous people, loan sharks. They threatened to hurt her, to hurt your mother. She needed $500,000 or they would kill her." I remained silent, waiting. "She said there was a way to get the money without anyone getting hurt. If you were declared incompetent, she could become your guardian. She could access your accounts, Sell some assets, pay off her debts. Then later you would recover and everything would go back to normal. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her. Daniel's voice cracked. She promised that once her debts were clear, we could start over. The three of us. She said you would never have to know about us. The naivety was almost painful. Laura had manipulated Daniel the same way she manipulated everyone, by telling him exactly what he wanted to hear. The conservatorship wouldn't have been temporary, I said flatly. Once Laura had control, she would have drained everything. My savings, my investments, my retirement funds, and when there was nothing left, she would have found a way to make my incapacity permanent. Daniel stared at me, realization dawning. She used me, he whispered. Yes, and you let her, because you were too weak and too selfish to see what was right in front of you. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a USB drive. This is everything. Emails, plans, account numbers Laura set up. I copied it last week because I started to get scared. I think she was planning to get rid of me too, once I wasn't useful anymore. I took the USB drive. My fingers brushed against Daniel's. The same fingers I had held on our wedding day. The same hands that once made me feel safe. For one moment, the surgical mask slipped. I loved you, I said quietly. For 10 years, I built a life around you. I worked 80-hour weeks so we could have this house, this future. I turned down a fellowship in London because you didn't want to move. I gave up everything I could give, and it still wasn't enough. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Don't. I held up a hand. Don't apologize, don't explain, don't tell me you're sorry. Words mean nothing from someone who was planning my destruction while sleeping in my bed. I stood, tucking the USB drive into my purse alongside my recording phone. I want you out of my life. Completely. You'll sign whatever divorce papers Rachel sends you, and you'll cooperate fully with any investigation into Laura's crimes. If you do that, I won't push for charges against you. Daniel looked up with desperate hope. And if I don't? My expression hardened. Then I'll show the police the security footage of you standing guard while my sister tried to murder me. Your choice. As I turned to leave, Daniel called out, Wait, there's something else. Something Laura told me that you need to know. I paused. It's about your father. Laura said the car accident wasn't an accident. I froze mid-step. My father, Robert Bennett, died 10 years ago in a car crash. Single vehicle, wet roads, a sharp curve on the highway. The police ruled it accidental. The family mourned. Life went on. What did you say? Daniel's voice was barely audible. Laura was drunk one night, about a year ago. She said something strange, that your father got what was coming to him. I asked what she meant, but she changed the subject and never mentioned it again. That's not proof of anything. No, but she also said your father was going to cut her out of the will before he died. He found out she had been forging his signature on checks. He told her he was going to disinherit her the following week. The following week? Robert Bennett died 3 days before his scheduled meeting with the estate attorney. My mind raced. Could Laura have done something that monstrous? Could my baby sister have killed our father for money? It seemed impossible. But it had seemed impossible that Laura would try to poison me, too. I need to go, I said, my voice hollow. I walked out of the hotel bar without looking back. In the parking garage, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll end up like your father. I stared at the screen. Someone was watching. Someone was warning me. Or threatening me. I met Rachel at a coffee shop far from Beacon Hill, far from anyone who might recognize us. I handed over the USB drive, replayed Daniel's recorded confession, showed her the threatening text message. Rachel listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, she set down her coffee cup. This changes things. If Laura was involved in your father's death, this isn't just attempted murder. This is a pattern. A decade-long pattern of financial predation and possibly multiple homicides. I nodded. I had reached the same conclusion. What do we do? Rachel pulled out a legal pad, began making notes. First, we secure all this evidence in multiple locations. Second, we get the toxicology results on the champagne. Third, we start investigating your father's accident. Police reports, insurance claims, any witnesses? She looked up at me. And fourth, we prepare for Laura's next move, because she knows you're fighting back. And desperate people do desperate things. I arrived home to find the lights on. Lights I had turned off when I left. I approached cautiously, hand on my phone ready to dial 911. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly. Margaret sat in my living room, posture rigid, face streaked with tears. She was holding a piece of paper. "Emily." Her voice trembled. "Laura called me an hour ago. She's holding a press conference tomorrow morning. She's going to tell everyone what you did to her." Margaret handed me the paper. A printed press release. The headline read, "Prominent Boston surgeon accused of attempted murder. Sister speaks out." Below it was Laura's photo, the perfect victim, ready to destroy my reputation before I could destroy her. The race was on, and Laura had just fired the first public shot. I watched the press conference from my living room, alone. Laura sat behind a podium at the Boston Press Club, flanked by her new attorney. Victor Ashford was a silver-haired man known for representing high-profile victims in civil suits. He had the kind of face that made juries trust him immediately. Laura wore minimal makeup, a simple black dress. Her hair was pulled back with no jewelry, every detail calculated to project vulnerability. The cameras loved her. "My sister tried to kill me," Laura said, her voice trembling with rehearsed emotion. "At her own anniversary party, in front of our family, she poisoned my drink. If I hadn't collapsed when I did, if the paramedics hadn't arrived in time, I would be dead." She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The gesture was perfect, delicate, wounded. Emily has always been jealous of me. She resented our relationship with our mother. She controlled every aspect of her husband's life until he had nowhere else to turn. And when I tried to help Daniel escape her abuse, she decided to eliminate me. I stared at the screen. Laura had inverted reality completely. The abuser claimed victimhood. The murderer wept for the cameras. And the world believed every word. The press conference cut to a photo of me. I was at a medical conference, my expression stern and professional. Beside it, they placed a photo of Laura smiling at a charity event. The visual narrative was clear: cold villain versus warm victim. Within an hour, the hashtag exploded. Justice for Laura trended nationally. My name was attached to words like monster, psychopath, narcissistic abuser. Strangers dissected my life with the confidence of people who had never met me. Someone dug up my medical school yearbook photo. Another found my address. A Facebook group formed called Survivors of Narcissistic Siblings, with Laura's story as the first post. I scrolled through the comments, each one a small wound. I always knew something was off about female surgeons. Too cold, too controlling. Her poor husband. Can you imagine being married to that ice queen? Laura is so brave for speaking out. Emily belongs in prison. The cruelty was breathtaking. These people knew nothing about me. Nothing about the lives I had saved, the sacrifices I had made, the sister I had supported for 30 years. They saw Laura's tears and my composure, and they chose the performance over the truth. I closed my laptop. My hands were steady, but something inside me was bleeding. 12 years of building a reputation, destroyed in 12 hours. My phone rang, the hospital administrator's number. I already knew what this call would bring. Dr. Patricia Holloway, Chief Medical Officer of Boston General, delivered the news with clinical detachment. "Emily, I'm sure you understand our position. The hospital cannot be associated with a criminal investigation of this nature. Until the matter is resolved, we're placing you on administrative leave. Effective immediately." "I haven't been charged with anything," I said, keeping my voice level. "Laura is the one who poisoned the champagne. I have evidence." "I'm aware of your claims." Her tone suggested she did not believe them. But the court of public opinion has already rendered its verdict. Our board received 200 complaint calls this morning. Parents are threatening to transfer their children to other hospitals if you remain on staff. I closed my eyes. I had worked at Boston General for 9 years. I had performed over 4,000 surgeries. I had trained dozens of residents. And now I was being erased because of a hashtag. What about my patients? Mrs. Rodriguez is scheduled for a colectomy on Thursday. I promised her, Dr. Mendez will take over your cases. I'm sorry, Emily. My hands are tied. The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, suspended, silenced, stripped of the identity I had spent 12 years building. An email notification appeared on my phone. Your hospital access credentials have been deactivated. Below it, another message. Surgical privileges suspended pending review. They had not even waited for my response before locking me out. I tried calling colleagues. Most did not answer. Those who did kept the conversations brief and uncomfortable. Dr. Nathan Cross, the cardiologist who helped at the party, sent a text instead of calling. Emily, I believe you, but I can't be seen supporting you publicly right now. I'm sorry. I have a family to think about. Dr. Sarah Okonjo, my closest friend at the hospital, did not respond at all. We had shared hundreds of surgeries, thousands of coffees, countless late-night conversations about life and medicine. Now there was only silence. The medical community that had embraced me for a decade had collectively decided I was radioactive. I sat in my living room surrounded by evidence of a life that no longer existed. My surgical calendar on the wall showed appointments I would never keep. Thank you cards from patients lined the mantel. A framed photo from last year's hospital gala showed colleagues smiling beside me. The same colleagues who now pretended I did not exist. This was what isolation felt like, not dramatic loneliness, but the quiet withdrawal of everyone who once mattered. I made myself a cup of tea. My hands finally trembled. The doorbell rang. I tensed. Reporters had been circling the block all morning. I peered through the peephole and saw a face I did not expect. A young man in a catering company polo shirt, clutching his phone like a lifeline. I opened the door cautiously. Dr. Carter? He looked terrified. I'm sorry to show up like this. I didn't know where else to go. His name was Marcus Webb, 23 years old. He had worked as a server at my anniversary party. I let him in and guided him to the living room. He perched on the edge of the sofa, knee bouncing with nervous energy. I saw what happened at the party, Marcus said. I was refilling champagne glasses near the serving station. I saw your sister put something in your drink. My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice calm. Did anyone else see? I don't think so, but I recorded it. He held up his phone. I was filming the decorations for my Instagram, the ice sculptures and stuff. I didn't realize until later that I caught everything. He turned the phone toward me. The video was shaky, partially obstructed by a flower arrangement, but the essential elements were clear. Laura approaching the glasses. Laura checking over her shoulder. Laura dropping white powder into the glass etched with my name. Laura stirring and walking away. Why didn't you go to the police? I asked. Marcus's face crumpled with shame. I was scared. I'm on a work visa. My boss said if I got involved in anything controversial, he would fire me. But then I saw the news and I saw what she's saying about you, and I couldn't just stay quiet. You're here now, I said quietly. That's what matters. Marcus scrolled to another video on his phone. There's more. I kept recording during the toast. I caught the moment you switched the glasses. It proves you didn't poison her. You defended yourself. The second video was clearer than the first. Marcus had been positioned near the front of the crowd when the toast began, filming the anniversary celebration. I watched myself on screen. I approached the serving station while Laura was distracted. My hands moved with surgical precision, left to right to left. The switch took less than 2 seconds. Then Laura picked up the poisoned glass, raised it high, drank. This is it, I breathed. This is proof that I knew about the poison before the toast. I didn't attack her. I redirected her own attack. Rachel arrived 20 minutes later, summoned by my urgent call. She watched both videos 3 times, her lawyer's mind cataloging every detail. "This is admissible," Rachel confirmed. "Marcus filmed on his personal phone at a public event. There's no expectation of privacy. Combined with your home security footage and the toxicology results we're expecting, we have a complete picture." I turned to Marcus. "Are you willing to testify?" The young man hesitated, fear warred with conscience on his face. "They'll come after me," he said. "Your sister's lawyer, the media, everyone." "I'll protect you," I promised. "Whatever it takes." Marcus took a shaky breath. "Okay, I'll do it." Rachel's phone buzzed. She read the message, and her expression shifted to something between triumph and grim satisfaction. "The toxicology results are in. The champagne contained rohypnol, flunitrazepam, the same compound found in your sister's bloodstream. It's a match." The scientific proof was now complete. Laura had poisoned the champagne with a date rape drug. A drug that in high enough doses could cause respiratory failure and death. Rachel spread documents across my dining table, which had now become a war room. "Laura went public first, which means we need to hit back hard and fast, not just legally but in the media. We need to control the narrative." "What do you suggest?" "I have a contact at the Boston Globe. Investigative reporter, won a Pulitzer 2 years ago. She's skeptical of easy victim narratives. If we give her exclusive access to our evidence before the hearing, she can publish a counterstory that reframes everything." "Won't that look like we're trying the case in the press?" Rachel smiled grimly. "Laura already did that. We're just responding. The difference is we have evidence. She has tears." I considered her words. A lifetime of professional restraint told me to wait, to trust the legal system, to let truth prevail in court. But the legal system moved slowly. Public opinion moved fast. By the time I was exonerated in court, my reputation could be permanently destroyed. "Make the call," I decided. "Let's give them something to write about." That evening, I allowed myself a moment of cautious hope. I had witnesses. I had evidence. I had a plan. Then my phone rang. Caller ID showed Boston Police Department. "Dr. Carter, this is Detective Rivera. I need you to come to the station tomorrow morning." My stomach tightened. "Am I being arrested?" A long pause. "No, not yet, but there's been a development. We've received new information from your sister's legal team. They're claiming they have a witness, a nurse from Boston General who will testify that you threatened to kill your sister 3 weeks before the party." My blood turned to ice. I had never threatened anyone. But I knew exactly who would lie about such a thing. Someone inside the hospital, someone Laura had gotten to first. "Who is the witness? I can't disclose that yet, but I suggest you bring your attorney." The line went dead. I stared at my phone. Laura had planted a false witness inside my own hospital, someone willing to commit perjury to destroy me. The war had just escalated, and I was running out of time. Detective Rivera slid a photograph across the interrogation table. A woman in her 40s with sharp features and dyed blonde hair stared back at me. "Do you know this person?" I recognized her immediately. Denise Hartley, a surgical nurse who had worked on my team for 2 years before transferring to another department. We had conflicts. She was sloppy, missed protocols, resented my exacting standards. I filed 3 formal complaints before she was finally reassigned. "She's claiming you threatened your sister during a phone call in the surgical lounge 3 weeks ago," Rivera said. "She says you told Laura, and I quote, 'I could kill you and make it look like an accident. I'm a surgeon. I know exactly how to do it.'" My jaw tightened. I never said those words. I haven't spoken to Laura in over a month before the party. Denise Hartley has a personal grudge against me. "Can you prove that?" Rachel interposed smoothly. "Can you prove she's telling the truth? Where's the corroboration, phone records, other witnesses?" Rivera's expression flickered with uncertainty. I remembered something then. 3 weeks ago, I was in Chicago at the American College of Surgeons conference. I had flight records, hotel receipts, photographs time-stamped from the presentation I delivered to 300 surgeons. I was never in Boston that day. Rachel produced my travel documents within the hour, flight confirmation from Logan to O'Hare, hotel receipt from the Palmer House Hilton, conference registration badge, photos from the event showing me at the podium at the exact time Denise claimed I was threatening Laura in a hospital lounge 800 miles away. Detective Rivera examined the evidence, his expression shifting from skepticism to something closer to belief. "This appears to contradict Miss Hartley's statement," he admitted. "It doesn't just contradict it," Rachel said firmly. "It proves she's lying. Dr. Carter was 800 miles away when this alleged threat occurred. I want to file a formal complaint for filing a false police report." Rivera nodded slowly. "I'll need to re-interview Miss Hartley." After he left, I turned to Rachel. "Laura got to her. She must have paid Denise or promised her something." "Which means Laura is scared," Rachel replied. "She's manufacturing witnesses because she knows her case is falling apart. Desperate people make mistakes." Rachel's investigator texted her an update. He had found Denise Hartley's bank records. A cash deposit of $15,000 appeared in her account 2 days after the party. The source was untraceable, but the timing was damning. Dr. Amara Okonkwo met me at a quiet cafe near the hospital. Neutral ground where we would not be seen by colleagues who had abandoned me. Amara slid a folder across the table. "The full toxicology report. I ran it twice to be certain." I opened the folder. The results were unambiguous. Flunitrazepam, commonly known as Rohypnol. Concentration in the champagne residue was approximately 2 milligrams per ounce, enough to cause severe sedation, respiratory depression, and potentially death, especially combined with alcohol. "This wasn't meant to just incapacitate you," Amara said quietly. "At this concentration, with champagne already in your system, you would have stopped breathing within 10 minutes. If no one had intervened, you would have died." I absorbed this information. I knew Laura intended harm, but seeing the numbers made it visceral. My sister had calculated a lethal dose. This was not impulsive. It was premeditated murder. "Where would she get Rohypnol?" I asked. "It's a controlled substance." Amara shook her head. "Dark web, most likely. Or she has a connection to someone with prescription access. Either way, obtaining this quantity required planning." Amara added one more detail that made my blood run cold. "I also found trace amounts of ketamine in the mixture. Your sister didn't just use one drug, she used a cocktail. Someone with medical knowledge helped her design this." Rachel's investigator, a former FBI agent named Tony Russo, had been tracking the drug source. His report arrived that afternoon via secure video call. "Rohypnol isn't easy to get in the United States," Tony explained. "It's not FDA approved, so it has to be imported illegally." I traced cryptocurrency transactions from an account linked to your sister. She purchased a party pack from a dark web vendor 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. Laura had been planning my murder for at least 6 weeks. "What about the ketamine?" "That's where it gets interesting." Tony pulled up another document. "Remember the note your nurse friend gave you? She said Laura bought ketamine from a pharmacy. I tracked it down, a compounding pharmacy in Somerville. The prescription was written by a Dr. Harold Vance." I did not recognize the name. "Dr. Vance is a psychiatrist who lost his license 2 years ago for overprescribing controlled substances. He's been running a cash-only practice out of his home, writing scripts for anyone willing to pay." A disgraced doctor, a dark web vendor, a desperate sister with gambling debts, and a death wish for her sibling. The conspiracy was larger than I had imagined. Tony's final discovery was the most damning. Dr. Vance's patient records showed that Laura visited him 12 times in the past year. The diagnosis listed was anxiety disorder. The medications prescribed were Rohypnol, ketamine, and midazolam, a surgical anesthetic. My dining room had transformed into a command center. Documents covered every surface. A whiteboard tracked timelines, witnesses, and evidence chains. Rachel ran through the witness list methodically. Marcus Webb is our primary witness. His videos are our strongest visual evidence. I've prepped him for cross-examination. He's nervous but solid. Dr. Amara Okonkwo will serve as expert witness on toxicology. She'll explain the drug cocktail and its lethality. Her credentials are impeccable. Dr. Nathan Cross was present at the party and helped with emergency care. He's agreed to testify about Laura's symptoms being consistent with self-poisoning. Daniel Carter. Rachel paused. He's cooperating, but he's a double-edged sword. His testimony confirms the affair and conspiracy, but the defense will attack his credibility as a scorned accomplice trying to save himself. I nodded. What about the security footage? Enhanced and time-stamped, we have continuous footage from 3 angles showing Laura approaching the glasses, adding the powder, and you making the switch. The evidence was overwhelming. Any reasonable person would see the truth, but I knew trials were not always about truth. They were about narrative, performance, and persuasion. Rachel hesitated before her final update. There's one more potential witness, someone I've been trying to reach for 2 days, someone who might know about your father's accident. His name was George Kellerman, 72 years old, retired auto mechanic, living in a nursing home in Worcester. 10 years ago, he worked at the garage that serviced Robert Bennett's car, the car that crashed, the car that killed my father. Rachel and I visited him together. George was frail but sharp-eyed, sitting in a wheelchair by a window overlooking a parking lot. I remember that car, George said, his voice gravelly with age. Silver Mercedes. Beautiful machine. Mr. Bennett brought it in for routine maintenance 3 days before the accident. Was there anything wrong with it? I asked. George was quiet for a long moment. The brakes were fine when I checked them, perfect condition. He paused. But what? After the accident, the police came to inspect the wreck. I overheard them talking. The brake lines had been cut. Clean cuts, not wear. Someone sabotaged that car. My heart pounded against my ribs. Did you tell anyone? George's face crumpled with old guilt. I tried. I called the police station, left messages. No one ever called back. Then about a week later, a young woman came to see me. Pretty thing. Blonde hair, crying her eyes out. Said she was Mr. Bennett's daughter. My blood turned to ice. Laura. She begged me not to say anything, said the family couldn't handle more tragedy, said her mother was suicidal with grief. I felt sorry for her, so I kept quiet. He looked at me with rheumy eyes filled with decades of regret. I'm sorry. I should have spoken up. George reached into his nightstand drawer and produced a faded envelope. I kept this, don't know why. Guilt, maybe. The police photos from the wreck. I wasn't supposed to have them, but I made copies. Look at the brake lines. Those cuts are surgical. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. On the drive back to Boston, I stared at the photos George had given me. The brake lines were clearly severed. Not frayed, not worn, cut. She killed him, I said, the words heavy as stones. Laura killed our father 10 years ago, and she's been living off his death ever since. Rachel nodded grimly. The insurance payout from the accident was $300,000. Laura was listed as co-beneficiary with your mother. She received $150,000, which she gambled away. And when that money ran out, she started planning her next score. My voice hardened. Me. The pattern was sickening in its clarity. Laura was not a desperate sister who made one terrible mistake. She was a predator who had been hunting her own family for a decade. Father, sister, who would be next? Mother? Anyone with money Laura could access? I made a decision. We're not just going to defend against her accusations. We're going to expose everything. We returned to Boston as the sun set. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Key witness in Carter poisoning case attacked outside Boston apartment. My blood froze. I opened the article. Marcus Webb was assaulted 2 hours ago outside his apartment building. He was in stable condition at Massachusetts General with a concussion and broken ribs. His phone, containing the videos, was stolen. The article quoted an anonymous source. The victim claimed his attacker said, "Keep your mouth shut or next time we'll finish the job." I called Marcus immediately. No answer. I called the hospital. He was in surgery. Laura knew about the videos. Laura sent someone to silence him. But Laura made one mistake. She did not know that Rachel already had copies. Every video, every frame, backed up in 3 secure locations. The hearing was in 2 days. I had my evidence, my witnesses, my truth. Now I just had to survive long enough to use them. Margaret stood on my doorstep looking like a woman who had aged 10 years in 4 days. I checked the security camera before opening the door. A habit now, after Marcus's attack. My mother's usually immaculate hair was disheveled. Her designer coat was buttoned wrong. She clutched a worn leather satchel against her chest like a shield. I considered not answering. This woman had chosen Laura over me. She accused me of being wrong since childhood. She watched her eldest daughter get dragged away for questioning and said nothing in defense. But something in Margaret's posture stopped me. The rigid control was gone. In its place was defeat. I opened the door. "I need to talk to you," Margaret said. Her voice cracked on the last word. "Please, before it's too late." I stepped aside. My mother entered, moving like a woman walking to her own execution. We sat across from each other in the living room, the same room where Laura collapsed, where this nightmare began. The irony was not lost on either of us. "I know about the hearing tomorrow," Margaret said. "I know what you're going to present." She opened the leather satchel and pulled out a thick manila folder, edges worn from years of handling. "I've been keeping this for 10 years. I should have given it to you the day your father died. Instead, I was a coward." Margaret's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were police reports, medical records, school disciplinary files, and handwritten notes in Robert Bennett's precise script. "Laura was never normal," Margaret began, her voice hollow. "I know that's a terrible thing for a mother to say, but it's the truth. From the time she was a child, she was different." I listened as my mother unraveled 30 years of hidden history. Age 8. Laura was caught stealing money from classmates' backpacks. Margaret paid off the families to keep it quiet. Age 12. Laura pushed a girl down the stairs at school after the girl won an award Laura wanted. The girl broke her collarbone. Margaret transferred Laura to a private school before charges could be filed. Age 15. Laura forged our father's signature on checks totaling $12,000. Robert discovered it, confronted her. That night, I fell down the stairs and broke my arm. "I always thought it was an accident," I whispered. Margaret shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I saw her do it. I was at the top of the stairs. Laura looked right at me after you fell, and she smiled. She was punishing your father through you." My childhood rearranged itself in my memory. Every accident, every illness that kept me home when something important happened, every time Laura emerged as the victim of circumstances, all of it calculated. "Why didn't you stop her?" I demanded. Margaret's face crumpled. "Because I was afraid of her." Among the documents, I spotted a psychiatric evaluation dated 22 years ago. The diagnosis read, "Antisocial personality disorder with narcissistic features." Laura was 13 years old when this was written. Margaret had her evaluated, got the diagnosis, then buried the results. Margaret pulled out a leather journal. My father's handwriting filled every page. "Your father knew," she said. "He figured it out long before I accepted it. He kept records of everything Laura did, everything he suspected. He was building a case." I took the journal with reverent hands. My father's voice spoke from the pages. March 15th. Found evidence L has been accessing E's college fund. Forged my signature on withdrawal slips. Amount $8,000. Confronted L. She denied everything, then cried, then threatened to tell police I was abusing her. M believes her. M always believes her. April 3rd. Consulted attorney about disinheriting L complex process, but necessary. E must be protected. L is escalating. I fear what she might do when she realizes the money is being cut off. April 10th. Received anonymous threat. Stop investigating or face consequences. L must have allies. Who is helping her? Meeting with estate attorney scheduled for April 14th to finalize new will. I looked at the date of the last entry. April 11th. My father died on April 12th, 2 days before he was scheduled to cut Laura out of the inheritance. He was going to protect me, I whispered. He tried, Margaret said, and she killed him for it. The final page of Robert's journal contained a single line, written in urgent script. If something happens to me, look at the brake lines. L has been asking questions about my car. God forgive me for what I'm about to do. I'm installing a camera in the garage. I stared at my mother. A camera? Did he actually install it? Margaret reached into the satchel one final time. Her hand emerged holding a small USB drive, the plastic yellowed with age. I found this in his office safe after he died. I watched it once. Her voice broke completely. Once was enough. I've never had the courage to watch it again. I took the USB drive to my laptop. My hands were steady, surgeon's hands, but my heart pounded against my ribs. The footage was grainy, shot from a high angle in a dimly lit garage. Timestamp: April 11th, 11:47 in the evening, the night before Robert Bennett's fatal accident. A figure entered the frame. Blonde hair caught the light. Laura, younger, thinner, but unmistakably Laura. She approached the silver Mercedes carrying a small toolbox. I watched my sister slide beneath the car. Watched her work with focused precision for 7 minutes. Watched her emerge, examine her hands, and smile. Before leaving the frame, Laura looked directly at the camera. She did not know it was there, but the angle captured her face perfectly. Her expression was calm, satisfied, the expression of someone completing a task. 8 hours later, Robert Bennett's brakes failed on a mountain curve. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. I closed the laptop. The room spun around me. You've had this for 10 years, I said, my voice barely recognizable. You had proof that Laura murdered our father, and you did nothing. Margaret collapsed into sobs. I was going to turn her in, I swear I was, but she came to me the day after the funeral. She said if I ever showed anyone that video, she would tell the police that I helped plan it, that we did it together for the insurance money. She said she had evidence that would destroy me. She blackmailed you. Margaret nodded, wiping her eyes. Every time I considered going to the police, she reminded me what she could do. She said she had documents with my signature, recordings of conversations taken out of context. I don't even know if it's true, but I couldn't take the risk. So you protected her. You let her get away with murder. You let her come after me. I thought if I kept her close, kept her calm, gave her what she wanted, she would stop. I thought I could control her. Margaret laughed bitterly. I was a fool. You can't control someone like Laura. You can only survive her. I thought of all the years I spent wondering why my mother loved Laura more. All the birthdays where Laura got better gifts. All the holidays where I felt like an outsider in my own family. It was never love. It was appeasement. Margaret was not choosing Laura over me. She was sacrificing me to keep Laura satisfied. The realization did not make it hurt less, but it made it make sense. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. After everything. Why come forward the night before the hearing? Margaret looked at me with hollow eyes. Because Laura called me this morning. She asked me to testify against you tomorrow. She wants me to tell the judge that you've always been mentally unstable, that you've threatened her for years. She paused. I can't do it anymore, Emily. I can't keep choosing her over you. I won't survive it. I studied my mother. This broken woman who had spent a decade in terror of her own daughter. There was no easy forgiveness here. Too much damage, too many years of silence. But there was something else. The beginning of understanding. Will you testify? I asked. Not against Laura, for the truth. Will you show the court the journal, the psychiatric evaluation, the video? Margaret's face contorted with fear. She'll destroy me. She'll tell everyone I was complicit. Maybe. Or maybe the truth will finally set you free. You've been Laura's prisoner for 10 years. How much longer are you willing to serve? The question hung in the air. Margaret was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, she straightened her spine. Something hardened in her eyes. Not strength exactly, but resignation. Acceptance. I'll testify, she whispered. God help me. I'll tell them everything. I reached across and took my mother's hand, the first physical contact between us in years. There's one more thing I need to know. The night of the party, before everything happened. Did you know what Laura was planning? Margaret shook her head vehemently. I swear to God, I didn't know she was going to poison you. I knew she was desperate. She told me about the debts, the loan sharks. She begged me for money, but I didn't have it. Your father's life insurance is long gone. My savings are almost nothing. But you suspected something. Margaret hesitated. She asked me strange questions in the weeks before the party, about your medical history, about whether you'd ever had any episodes, about who would handle your affairs if you became incapacitated. The conservatorship. Laura was laying groundwork. I should have warned you, Margaret admitted, but I convinced myself it was nothing. I wanted it to be nothing. She looked at me with devastated eyes. I've failed you your entire life. I know that. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just want a chance to finally do the right thing. I squeezed her hand. Then tomorrow, we tell the truth. All of it. We spent the next 3 hours organizing the evidence, the journal, the psychiatric evaluation, the garage video. Rachel arrived to coordinate Margaret's testimony with the rest of our case. As Margaret prepared to leave, my phone buzzed, a text from Laura's number. I know Mom is with you. I know what she's going to do. You think you've won, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. See you in court, big sister. May the best Bennett win. I showed the message to Margaret and Rachel. She's threatening us, Margaret whispered, face pale. No, Rachel said, her expression grim but focused. She's panicking. People who are winning don't send texts like this. She knows she's losing control. I stared at the message. Tomorrow, I would face my sister in court. Tomorrow, every secret would be exposed, every lie dismantled, every crime laid bare. Tomorrow, one of us would walk out free, the other would leave in handcuffs. I deleted the text and looked at my mother. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we end this. Dawn broke over Boston. I had not slept. The dining room table was covered with labeled folders, each one a weapon in tomorrow's battle. Rachel arrived at 6 a.m. with coffee and a thick binder. The final case file. We reviewed everything one last time. Folder 1. Marcus Webb's videos, now backed up to 4 secure cloud locations, and 2 physical hard drives. The original phone was stolen, but the evidence survived. Folder 2. Home security footage showing Laura poisoning the champagne and Daniel standing guard. Enhanced, time-stamped, authenticated by a digital forensics expert. Folder 3. Toxicology reports confirming rohypnol and ketamine in lethal concentrations. Folder 4. Financial records. Laura's gambling debts totaling $587,000. The $50,000 transfer from my account. Cryptocurrency transactions linking Laura to dark web drug purchases. Folder 5. The conservatorship petition and related documents showing premeditation weeks before the party. Folder 6. Daniel's recorded confession and the USB drive containing conspiracy communications. Folder 7. Margaret's evidence. The psychiatric evaluation from Laura's childhood. Robert's journal documenting his investigation. The garage video proving Laura murdered our father. This is the most comprehensive case I've ever built, Rachel said quietly. Any reasonable judge will see the truth. I nodded, but Laura had never responded reasonably to anything. Rachel's phone buzzed with an alert from her courthouse contact. Laura's lawyer just filed an emergency motion to postpone the hearing. grounds listed as newly discovered evidence of petitioner's mental instability. They were trying to delay. They were running out of options. Rachel spent 45 minutes on the phone with the judge's clerk, countering Laura's motion with documentation of my clean psychiatric history, my professional record, and character references from colleagues who had finally found their courage. At 8:30 in the morning, the ruling came. Motion denied. The hearing would proceed as scheduled. Judge Morrison saw through it, Rachel reported with grim satisfaction. He noted that the motion was filed at 11:59 last night, clearly a delay tactic. He's not impressed with Laura's legal team. I allowed myself a small breath of relief. But I knew better than to celebrate. Laura had been cornered before. Cornered animals were the most dangerous. "What's Laura doing right now?" I asked. Rachel checked her phone. "According to my investigator, she's been at her apartment all morning. Hasn't left. Hasn't answered calls from her lawyer." Silence from Laura was not reassuring. It was terrifying. An hour later, Tony Russo called with an update. Smoke had been spotted coming from Laura's apartment building. The fire department was responding. Someone was burning something. Rachel and I arrived at Laura's Somerville apartment to find 2 fire trucks outside. Firefighters emerged from the building carrying a smoldering metal trash can. Detective Rivera was already there, speaking with the building superintendent. "She set fire to documents in her bathroom," Rivera explained when he saw me. "Triggered the smoke alarm. By the time we got here, most of it was ash." "What was she burning?" "Hard to say. We recovered fragments. Looks like financial records, maybe correspondence. The fire forensics team will analyze what's left." I felt a chill despite the morning sun. Laura was destroying evidence. She knew she was losing. "Where is she now?" Rachel asked. Rivera's expression darkened. "That's the problem. She's gone. Neighbors saw her leave through the back exit about 20 minutes before we arrived. She's not answering her phone. Her car is still in the garage, so she's either on foot or someone picked her up." Laura was running. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The same format as the threatening messages. "You can't stop what's coming. See you at the finish line." Among the ash fragments recovered, a forensics technician found a partial document. A life insurance policy application with my name visible. The date was from 3 months ago. Laura had been planning to take out additional coverage on my life. Rachel worked through the morning securing emergency court orders. By noon, Laura's financial world had collapsed. All bank accounts linked to Laura Bennett were frozen pending investigation. All credit cards were suspended. The $50,000 she stole from my account was traced to an offshore transfer that had been blocked by international banking protocols before it could clear. "She tried to move money to the Cayman Islands last night," Rachel reported. "Classic flight preparation. But the transfer was flagged for suspicious activity. It never went through." Laura had planned to run. But she planned to run rich. Now she had no money, no accessible assets, and law enforcement actively searching for her. "She's trapped," I said. "Financially, yes, but a cornered person with nothing to lose is unpredictable." Rachel looked at me seriously. "I want you to stay somewhere else tonight. Not here. Somewhere Laura doesn't know about." I considered refusing. This was my home, my life. But I saw the wisdom in her words. Tomorrow was too important to risk. "I'll stay with a friend from medical school. Laura doesn't know her." "Good. Keep your phone charged." Rachel paused. "And Emily, don't answer any calls from Laura. Whatever she says, it's manipulation. Don't engage." A notification appeared on my phone. Laura's passport had been flagged by TSA. If she tried to leave the country through any major airport, she would be detained. Daniel called that afternoon. His voice sounded different, smaller, hollowed out. "I heard Laura tried to run," he said. "The police came to my hotel to ask if I knew where she might go." "Did you?" "No. I told them everything I know, everything." He paused. "I'm going to testify tomorrow, Emily. I'll tell the court about the affair, the conspiracy, all of it. I already gave a formal statement to Detective Rivera this morning." I waited, unsure what I was supposed to feel. Relief? Gratitude? Vindication? I know it doesn't change anything, Daniel continued. I know I destroyed our marriage. I know I helped her try to destroy you. But I want you to know I didn't understand what she really was. Not until it was too late. You saw the security footage, I said flatly. You watched her put poison in my drink and you did nothing. I know. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. His voice broke. I thought I loved her, but I think I was just weak, and she knew exactly how to use that weakness. I had no comfort to offer. Daniel made his choices. Now he was living with them. Testify truthfully tomorrow, I said. That's all I ask. I will, I promise. After hanging up, Rachel showed me a forwarded email. Daniel's formal statement to police included a detail he had never mentioned before. Laura talked about handling their mother the same way she handled their father. Once my money was secured. At 4:17 in the afternoon, my phone rang. Detective Rivera. We got her. Laura was apprehended at Logan International Airport attempting to board a flight to Cancun using a fake identification. She had purchased the ticket with cash. One way, no return. Rachel and I drove to the police station. We were not allowed to see Laura, but Rivera provided details. She was calm when we approached her. Too calm. No panic, no denial. She just smiled and asked for her lawyer. Rivera shook his head. In 20 years on the force, I've seen a lot of criminals. Most of them break when they're caught. Your sister looked like she was enjoying the game. I was not surprised. Laura had been playing games her entire life. This was just the final round. She'll be held overnight, Rivera continued. Arraignment is tomorrow morning, same time as your hearing. Judge Morrison has agreed to consolidate. He wants to see all the evidence at once. As we left the station, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something compelled me. Laura's voice, eerily serene. Hello, big sister. Laura. I assume you've heard about my temporary inconvenience. Don't worry, I'll be at the hearing tomorrow. I wouldn't miss it for the world. You're under arrest. You're facing murder charges. Laura laughed, a sound I once found charming, now recognized as hollow. Charges can be dropped. Witnesses can change their minds. Evidence can disappear. You think you've won, Emily. This isn't over. It's never over. Not until one of us is in the ground. The line went dead. I stared at my phone. The call was recorded. Standard protocol for jailhouse calls. Laura had just threatened me on tape, adding to the mountain of evidence. But her words echoed. Not until one of us is in the ground. This was not just about money or inheritance anymore. This was about survival. I spent the night at Dr. Sarah Chen's apartment, a medical school friend who lived in Cambridge, far from anywhere Laura might look. Sarah did not ask questions. She made tea, provided a clean bed, and sat with me in comfortable silence. Tomorrow everything changes, I said quietly. Either I get my life back or Laura finds a way to destroy it completely. Sarah took my hand. You've survived 12 years of surgical training. You've held people's hearts in your hands. You've made impossible decisions under impossible pressure. You can survive your sister. I looked out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Laura was in a holding cell, planning her next move. Somewhere, Daniel was rehearsing his testimony. Somewhere, Margaret was praying for courage. And here I was, alone but not broken, wounded but not defeated. Tomorrow I would walk into that courtroom and tell the truth. Whatever happened next, I would face it standing. At 5 a.m, I woke to my phone vibrating. A text from Rachel. Emergency. Call me now. My heart pounded as I dialed. Rachel answered on the first ring. Marcus Webb just called. Someone got to him in the hospital last night. Offered him $200,000 to recant his testimony and say the videos were doctored. My blood ran cold. Did he take it? No. He turned them down. But Emily, he was terrified. Whoever approached him knew details they shouldn't know. Details about his immigration status, his family back home. They threatened to have him deported. But he's still testifying? A pause. He says yes, but he's scared, Emily, really scared. If Laura's people get to him before the hearing... I was already getting dressed. Pick me up in 20 minutes. We're getting Marcus to that courthouse ourselves. No one else touches him. The final battle was about to begin, and I was not losing another witness. Suffolk County Courthouse rose against a gray October sky. I stood at the base of the granite steps, Rachel beside me, the morning air sharp with the promise of change. 6 days ago, I was celebrating my anniversary. Now I was walking into a courtroom to fight for my freedom, my reputation, and my life. Marcus Webb met us at the entrance, flanked by 2 private security guards Rachel had hired overnight. His face was drawn with exhaustion and fear, but his jaw was set with determination. "You okay?" I asked. "No," Marcus admitted, "but I'm here. That's what matters." Inside, the courtroom was already filling. Journalists occupied the back rows. The story had attracted national attention. I recognized colleagues from Boston General. Some had abandoned me. Others had sent quiet messages of support. Dr. Nathan Cross sat in the 3rd row, having finally found his courage. At the defendant's table, Laura sat in prison orange, hands cuffed in front of her. Her lawyer, Victor Ashford, shuffled papers with the frantic energy of a man who knew he was losing. Laura turned her head slowly, found my eyes across the room. She smiled, serene, knowing, predatory. I did not look away. I held my sister's gaze until she finally turned back to face the bench. The first battle was won without a word spoken. Margaret entered the courtroom last, escorted by a victim's advocate. When Laura saw our mother, her serene mask flickered, just for an instant. Something raw beneath. Fear? Rage? I could not tell. But Laura did not expect Margaret to be here. Judge Harrison Morrison took the bench. A silver-haired man in his 60s with a reputation for cutting through nonsense. He had consolidated the conservatorship hearing with the criminal arraignment, allowing all evidence to be presented together. Rachel delivered our opening statement with surgical precision. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that Laura Bennett engaged in a deliberate, premeditated attempt to murder her sister, Dr. Emily Carter. The defendant poisoned her sister's champagne with a lethal cocktail of rohypnol and ketamine. When her own poison was redirected back to her through her sister's self-defense, she then fabricated accusations of mental instability and attempted to seize control of Dr. Carter's assets through fraudulent conservatorship proceedings." Rachel paused, letting the words settle. "Furthermore, the evidence will show that this was not an isolated incident. Laura Bennett has a documented history of violence, manipulation, and fraud spanning 3 decades, culminating in the murder of her own father, Robert Bennett, 10 years ago." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Laura's mask cracked further. Her eyes darted to Margaret, to her lawyer, to the judge. Victor Ashford's opening statement was defensive, scattered. He spoke of misunderstandings, family conflicts, circumstantial evidence. Even the journalists looked unconvinced. As Ashford spoke, I noticed him glance repeatedly at Laura. Not with the confidence of an attorney defending an innocent client, but with the wariness of a man who had realized too late what he was representing. Rachel called her first evidence submission. The videos. The courtroom screens flickered to life. Marcus Webb's footage played first, shaky but clear. Laura approached the champagne glasses. She glanced around. She reached into her clutch. White powder fell into the glass marked Emily. The courtroom was silent. Every eye was fixed on the screen. Then my home security footage played. A different angle, higher resolution. Laura's face was visible as she stirred the poison into the champagne. Daniel positioned himself as lookout. The timestamp was unambiguous. Finally, the second Marcus video. I approached the glasses, performed the switch with surgical speed, redirected the poison to its source. As the court can see, Rachel said. Dr. Carter did not poison her sister. She defended herself against an attempted murder. Every action she took was reactive, not proactive. She saved her own life using the only means available in that moment. Judge Morrison studied the footage, replayed certain sections, made notes. Laura sat rigid, her earlier serenity completely gone. Her cuffed hands gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. Victor Ashford attempted to object. He claimed the footage could be doctored, demanded forensic authentication. Judge Morrison silenced him with a look. The court has already received authentication reports from 3 independent digital forensics experts. Objection overruled. Sit down, counselor. The witnesses took the stand one by one. Marcus Webb described what he saw at the party. Laura's suspicious behavior. The powder. His decision to keep filming. Under cross-examination, Ashford tried to attack his credibility, his immigration status, his motives. Marcus remained steady. I'm just telling what I saw, sir. The video doesn't lie. Dr. Amara Okonkwo presented the toxicology evidence with clinical precision. Rohypnol concentration at lethal levels. Ketamine presence confirmed. Combined effect would be respiratory failure within 10 to 15 minutes. In your expert opinion, Rachel asked, was this dosage designed to incapacitate or to kill? To kill, Amara replied without hesitation. There is no therapeutic or recreational reason for this combination at these concentrations. This was a lethal cocktail, deliberately designed. Daniel Carter took the stand next. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a week. His testimony was halting, shame-filled, but complete. I helped her plan it, Daniel admitted, his voice cracking. I thought it was just about the conservatorship, making Emily look unstable so Laura could take control. I didn't know about the poison until it was too late. Did the defendant ever discuss harming Dr. Carter physically? Daniel closed his eyes. She said it would be easier if Emily just went to sleep and didn't wake up. I thought she was speaking metaphorically. I was wrong. As Daniel left the stand, he paused in front of me. I'm sorry, he whispered, too quiet for the microphones, but loud enough for me to hear. I'm so sorry. I nodded once. It was not forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. Margaret Bennett took the stand. She moved slowly, like a woman walking through water. When she sat, she did not look at Laura. Rachel guided her through the evidence gently. The psychiatric evaluation from Laura's childhood, the pattern of theft and violence, Robert's journal documenting his investigation. Then Rachel asked the question that would change everything. Mrs. Bennett, do you have evidence regarding your husband's death? Margaret's voice trembled but did not break. Yes, my husband installed a hidden camera in our garage 3 days before he died. He suspected Laura was planning something. The courtroom held its breath. The garage video played on the screens. Grainy footage, timestamp visible. Laura entering the garage at 11:47 in the evening. Sliding under the Mercedes with a toolbox. Working for 7 minutes. Emerging with satisfied calm. Looking directly at the hidden camera with a smile she did not know was being recorded. 8 hours later, Robert Bennett was dead. The courtroom erupted. Journalists typed frantically. The gallery buzzed with shocked whispers. Judge Morrison banged his gavel for order. Through it all, Laura sat motionless. But her eyes, fixed on Margaret, burned with pure hatred. Why did you wait 10 years to come forward? Rachel asked gently. Margaret finally looked at her youngest daughter. Tears streamed down her face. Because she threatened me. She said she would destroy me if I ever told. And I believed her. Her voice hardened. But I won't be her prisoner anymore. I won't let her hurt anyone else. Not Emily, not anyone. Laura spoke for the first time. Not to her lawyer, not to the judge, but directly to Margaret. Her voice cut through the murmurs like ice. You're dead to me. Do you hear me, Mother? Dead. Victor Ashford attempted damage control, calling for a recess, claiming his client was unwell. but Laura was beyond his control now. She rose from her seat, cuffed hands raised, face contorted with rage. "You think you've won?" she screamed at me. "You think this is over? I made you. Everything you have, I let you keep. I could have taken it all years ago, but I was patient. I was smart, and you ruined everything." Bailiffs moved toward her, but Laura kept screaming. Father was going to cut me off. He was going to leave me with nothing. So yes, I fixed the brakes. And I'd do it again. He chose you. He always chose you. The perfect daughter, the brilliant surgeon, everyone's favorite. But I'm the one who survives. I'm the one who wins. She lunged toward me, but the bailiffs caught her, forced her back into her seat. The courtroom was silent. Laura's confession, unprompted, uncoerced, recorded by court stenographers and every camera in the room, hung in the air like smoke. Victor Ashford dropped his head into his hands. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. "Miss Bennett, you have just confessed to murder in open court. I strongly advise you to remain silent for the remainder of these proceedings." Laura looked at me one final time. Her rage had burned out, leaving something hollow behind. "We're the same, you and me," she whispered. "The only difference is you got caught being good, and I got caught being honest." I shook my head slowly. "No, Laura. The difference is I save lives. You take them." Judge Morrison took 30 minutes to review his notes. The courtroom waited in tense silence. When he returned, his face was grave. "In the matter of the conservatorship petition filed by Laura Bennett against Emily Carter, the petition is denied in its entirety. The evidence clearly shows this petition was part of a fraudulent scheme to seize Dr. Carter's assets following an attempted murder." He turned to Laura. "In the matter of criminal charges, the court finds sufficient evidence to proceed with charges of attempted murder in the first degree, conspiracy to commit fraud, and based on testimony and video evidence presented today, murder in the first degree in the death of Robert Bennett." He banged his gavel. "The defendant is remanded to custody without bail pending trial. Court is adjourned." Bailiffs lifted Laura from her seat. She did not struggle. She did not speak. She simply stared at me as they led her away. A stare empty of everything except the promise of unfinished business. I stood in the emptying courtroom, Rachel beside me, the weight of 6 days finally lifting from my shoulders. I won. The truth prevailed. Laura would face justice for everything: the poisoning, the fraud, the murder of our father. But victory felt hollow. My marriage was destroyed. My family was shattered. My mother was broken. My father's death, unavenged for 10 years, had finally been exposed. But he was still gone. Margaret approached slowly, hesitantly. She did not try to hug me. She simply stood beside her daughter, both of us staring at the empty defendant's table. "What happens now?" Margaret asked, her voice small. I considered the question. The hearing was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. There would be trials, testimony, media attention. There would be rebuilding. Or there would be permanent fractures. I took a breath. "Now," I said quietly, "we learn how to live with the truth." I walked out of the courtroom into the pale October sunlight, uncertain of everything except one thing. I survived. And survival, I was learning, was just the beginning. 3 months had passed since Laura's confession echoed through the courtroom. Winter had settled over Boston, the city wrapped in gray skies and early darkness. I stood outside Suffolk County Courthouse for what I hoped was the final time. Today was sentencing day. The trial was mercifully short. Laura's courtroom confession eliminated any possibility of defense. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal to avoid the spectacle of a full murder trial. Guilty to second-degree murder in the death of Robert Bennett. Guilty to attempted murder of Emily Carter. Guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Judge Morrison delivered the sentence with measured gravity. "Laura Bennett, this court sentences you to 22 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 15 years. You have demonstrated a pattern of predatory behavior spanning decades, culminating in the murder of your own father and the attempted murder of your sister. The court finds no mitigating circumstances." Laura stood motionless in her orange jumpsuit, shackled hands clasped in front of her. She did not cry, she did not protest, she simply stared at me with those empty eyes. 22 years. She would be 58 when first eligible for parole. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not relief, just hollow finality. As bailiffs led her away, Laura paused at the courtroom door. Without turning around, she spoke loudly enough for me to hear. 15 years is a long time to plan, big sister. I'll be thinking of you every single day." Daniel's hearing followed. His charges were lesser: conspiracy to commit fraud, accessory after the fact. His cooperation with prosecutors earned him leniency. 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, full financial restitution to me. Our divorce had been finalized 2 weeks earlier. I kept everything: the house, the accounts, the investments. Daniel walked away with nothing but his clothes and his shame. He passed me without making eye contact. 10 years of marriage, reduced to a stack of legal documents and a stranger walking out of a courtroom. Boston General Hospital reinstated me with a formal apology. Dr. Patricia Holloway delivered it in person, her face tight with discomfort. "On behalf of the hospital and the board of directors, I want to express our sincere regret for the way this situation was handled. Dr. Carter, you are a valued member of our surgical team." I listened without expression. The words were carefully crafted, legally vetted, designed to minimize liability while appearing contrite. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally, "but I think we both know that if the evidence hadn't been overwhelming, I would still be suspended. The hospital protected itself, not me." I returned to surgery the following week. The operating room had always been my sanctuary, but the hospital felt different now. Some colleagues welcomed me warmly. Others avoided eye contact. I noted who was who. I knew now who my real friends were. The list was shorter than I expected. Margaret called every Sunday at exactly 2 in the afternoon. I answered every time. Our conversations were careful, measured. 2 people learning to speak without decades of dysfunction coloring every word. "I want to see you," Margaret said during one call. "I want to come to Boston. I want to try to make things right." "You can visit," I said finally. "But I need you to understand some things first. What happened, the years of silence, the favoritism, the protection you gave Laura at my expense, that doesn't disappear because you testified. I know. We can rebuild something, but it will be slow, and it will be different. I'm not the daughter who accepts crumbs anymore." "I understand." It was not reconciliation. It was a foundation. Fragile, uncertain, but real. The Beacon Hill brownstone sold in February for $2.3 million. I signed the papers without sentiment. Too many ghosts lived in those walls. The anniversary party, Laura's collapse, Daniel's absence. I could not heal in a place where I almost died. My new home was a 2-bedroom condo in the Seaport district. Modern, clean, anonymous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston Harbor. There was no history here, no memories embedded in the floorboards. On my first night, I stood at the window watching the harbor lights reflect on dark water. I was starting over at 41. It terrified me. It exhilarated me. In March, I filed paperwork for a nonprofit organization, the Robert Bennett Foundation for Family Violence Prevention. The mission was simple: provide legal resources, financial support, and counseling for victims of family-based abuse and manipulation. I funded the initial endowment with $500,000, money I earned saving lives, now redirected to save lives in a different way. The foundation's first grant went to a legal aid clinic helping elderly parents trapped in abusive guardianship situations. The same trap Laura tried to spring on me. I spoke at the clinic's opening event. It was the first time I told my story publicly. The first time I claimed my experience as something other than shame. It felt like power. Marcus Webb visited my new condo in April. He looked different, healthier, more confident, less afraid. I got accepted, he said, face breaking into a wide smile. Boston College nursing program, full scholarship. I had arranged that scholarship through hospital connections. Anonymous donation, strings pulled, favors called. Marcus did not know I was behind it. You'll make an excellent nurse, I said. I keep thinking about that night, Marcus said, growing serious. How scared I was. How easy it would have been to stay quiet. You taught me something. That doing the right thing isn't about being brave. It's about showing up anyway, even when you're terrified. I thought of all the witnesses who abandoned me, the colleagues who looked away, and then Marcus, a 23-year-old caterer with everything to lose who showed up anyway. You taught me something too, I said quietly. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood at my window watching the summer sun set over Boston Harbor. My phone buzzed. A letter had arrived at my old address, forwarded by the new owners. Return address was the Women's Correctional Facility in Framingham. Laura's handwriting. I held the envelope for a long moment. Then I set it aside, unopened. Laura no longer had power over me, not through poison, not through lies, not through letters from prison. I poured myself a glass of wine and returned to the window. Tomorrow, I had surgery scheduled. A complicated tumor resection, the kind of case I lived for. Next week, the foundation hosted its second fundraising gala. Next month, I began teaching a surgical ethics course at Harvard Medical School. I was busy, I was healing, I was free. But as the sun disappeared below the horizon, I allowed myself one question I had been avoiding for months. What kind of life did I want now that survival was no longer enough? The answer, I suspected, would take the rest of my life to discover. And for the first time since my anniversary, that thought brought me peace. 1 year ago today, I stood in my Beacon Hill brownstone and watched my sister try to murder me. Now I stood on the balcony of my seaport condo, watching the October sun rise over Boston Harbor. The air was crisp with autumn, the same season that nearly ended my life. But the view was different now. The life was different. No champagne flutes etched with my name. No guests hiding agendas behind polished smiles. No sister calculating dosages. No husband plotting betrayal. Just me, a cup of coffee, and the quiet certainty that I survived. I did not celebrate this anniversary. There was nothing to celebrate about almost dying, but I acknowledged it, marked the date, allowed myself to remember, then deliberately moved forward. I was 41 years old. I was alone. I was free. My mornings had structure now. Not the frantic schedule of a surgeon racing to the hospital, but intentional rhythm. Yoga as the sun rose. Coffee brewed slowly, savored rather than gulped. 30 minutes of reading. Poetry, philosophy, novels I never had time for before. The woman who existed 1 year ago, the one who worked 80-hour weeks to avoid facing her hollow marriage, was gone. In her place was someone who chose her commitments rather than being chosen by them. Boston General felt different now. I walked through the surgical wing with the easy confidence of someone who had faced worse than hospital politics. The colleagues who abandoned me had faded into background noise. The ones who stood by me had become genuine friends. I was no longer the surgeon who worked herself to exhaustion to prove her worth. I was the surgeon who knew her worth and no longer needed to prove it. After a 7-hour surgery that saved a woman's life, I found a young resident crying in the supply closet. Overwhelmed, doubting herself, considering quitting. I sat with her for 20 minutes, shared my own moments of doubt, my own survival. The hardest surgeries aren't in the operating room, I told her. They're the ones you perform on your own life. She returned to work the next day. The Robert Bennett Foundation Gala filled the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons Boston. 300 donors, survivors, advocates, and allies gathered under crystal chandeliers. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces I did not know and some I did. Rachel Kim in the front row, Nathan Cross at table 3. Margaret seated quietly in the back, having earned her invitation through a year of respecting boundaries. I spoke without notes. 1 year ago, I almost died at my own anniversary party. My sister poisoned my champagne. My husband helped her plan it. My mother knew secrets she kept hidden for a decade. Everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. The room was silent. I am not here tonight to tell you a story about revenge. I am here to tell you a story about survival and about what comes after. I talked about the investigation, the trial, the aftermath. I talked about losing my career and rebuilding it. I talked about setting boundaries and learning to trust again. The most dangerous people in our lives are not strangers in dark alleys. They are the people who sit across from us at the dinner table, who know our vulnerabilities, who use our love against us. They are the people we call family. I paused, letting the words settle. But here is what I have learned. Surviving them is not enough. We must also learn to thrive. We must refuse to let their betrayal define us. We must build lives so full of purpose that their shadows cannot reach us. I kept a drawer in my desk for things I chose not to read. Laura's prison letters. 7 of them now. 1 every 6 weeks. Each one returned unopened. I did not know what they said. Apologies, threats, manipulation? It did not matter. Laura lost the right to my attention the moment she dropped poison into my champagne glass. Daniel's letter from the courthouse. Still sealed, still waiting. Whatever closure he needed to express, I did not need to receive. Some stories do not need endings. Some questions do not need answers. Laura's phone calls came next, the correctional facility number flashing on my screen. I watched it ring 3 times, then 4. On the 5th ring, I declined the call and blocked the number. Some doors must remain permanently closed. Margaret visited on a Sunday afternoon. We sat on my balcony drinking tea, watching the harbor traffic. The silence between us was no longer awkward. It had become comfortable. "I've been thinking about your father," Margaret said quietly. "About all the years I wasted being afraid. He would be proud of you, the foundation, the way you've rebuilt, the person you've become." She paused. "I'm proud of you too. I know I have no right to say that, but it's true." I considered my mother, this complicated woman who failed me in so many ways, who finally found courage at the end, who was trying now to be someone different. "Thank you," I said. It was not forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. And for now, that was enough. Before she left, Margaret handed me a small box. Inside was my father's wedding ring, recovered from his belongings after the accident, kept hidden for 10 years. "He would want you to have something of his," she said. I slipped the ring onto my right hand. It fit perfectly. My father was with me now, in a way he could not be before. Late at night, I stood at my window watching the city lights dance on dark water. I thought about everything I lost. My marriage, my illusions about family, my father, twice. Once to death, once to the truth about his death. But I also thought about what I gained, clarity about who I was, boundaries that protected my peace, work that mattered, relationships built on truth. I learned that generosity must have limits, or it becomes self-destruction. I learned that trust is earned through consistent action, not promised through pretty words. I learned that family is not blood. Family is the people who show up when everything falls apart. Most importantly, I learned that surviving betrayal is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new one. I poured myself a glass of wine, not champagne, never champagne again. "To survival," I said to the empty room, "to the truth, and to the life that comes after." I drank alone, but I was not lonely. I was complete. 1 year ago, my sister tried to poison me at my anniversary party. She wanted my money, my assets, my life. Instead, she got 22 years in prison, and I got something she could never take: the chance to start over. The most dangerous enemies are not the ones who attack us openly. They are the ones who smile at our dinner tables, who know our weaknesses, who weaponize our love. They are the people we call family. But here is what I want you to remember. Their betrayal does not define you. Their cruelty does not diminish you. Their plans do not determine your future. You are stronger than you know. You are worth protecting, and you deserve a life where the people who claim to love you actually do. If this story reminded you of your own battles, with family, with betrayal, with the long road to healing, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would do if you discovered the people closest to you were plotting against you. Your stories matter. Your survival matters. And if you want more stories about ordinary people who refuse to be victims, stories about justice, about karma, about turning the tables on those who underestimate us, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because this is just one story. There are thousands more waiting to be told. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, the best revenge is not destruction. The best revenge is living well. I am Emily Carter. I am a survivor. And my story is just beginning. This story is fictionalized for dramatic effect.